Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and this is a first for us. We have our very first fan interview coming on, someone that we met at Rev Pro last week. But I am also joined by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Adam Cousins. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. I don't know about my phone after it blowing up all day with followers.
Mate, I had to turn notifications off. We somehow got 7,000 followers on social media today. I have no idea what's happened, but the notifications went off, mate. It was getting ridiculous. But no, grateful for all the new followers and grateful for our amazing guest today. Someone, like I say, that we met at Rev Pro last week. You can find him on Twitter. He is Dave the Mark. Dave, how are you, sir?
Good evening, fellas. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
No, it is our pleasure, mate. You are the first one that we've done one of these. We've got one of our fans on. Like I say, we met you at the amazing Rev Pro show last week. It was myself and Adam and Rachel's first Rev Pro show. But Dave, mate, how did you get? I get it all the time. Oh, how did you get into wrestling? You still like it as an adult? Yada yada yada. But where did the wrestling journey start for you, mate?
Bret the Hitman Hart. I think that's like the most common answer I hear from so many people. But I'm 36. I grew up here. I grew up without any wrestling whatsoever. Like, we didn't have Sky, and that was the only way you could get it. But my aunt and uncle had it, and whenever we stayed at their house in the holidays, we'd get to watch it. And then they'd record all the pay-per-views and on like an old VHS cassette tape and send it in the post.
Oh.
And like, once a month, we'd get the tape day where it would come in. It's like literally like tape trading with your aunt. And yeah, so we my earliest sort of memories are like 1993. I would have been about 6, so about my son's age, and I was like Yokozuna and Bret Hart, like that feud.
Yes.
And then like literally the Hitman had me hooked. Just the best there ever is.
Yeah, WrestleMania 10, wasn't it, when he beat Yoko for the title? It's the same WrestleMania where
he had one
lost
at
to
9,
Owen.
didn't he? He had one at 9 and Hogan beat him, didn't he?
Hogan beat him.
Hogan
come out and threw the thing in Mr. Fuji's thing when in Yoko's face, didn't he? Yeah. That was
that's the one that stands out in my head so much.
Yeah, WrestleMania 10 was Owen.
Yes, yeah. And then from there, it was kind of... I think we got Sky in time for the France 98 World Cup.
Right.
And that was just at the time of like the Attitude Era really kicking off. Yeah. So I got to watch Raw every Friday night, watching sort of like Stone Cold and Mankind and The Rock coming through and Triple H coming through and the whole Vince evil boss storyline, which was just amazing. And at that point, like, and I think for so many people, WWF was the only wrestling I knew. It was the only thing that existed, and I stayed watching it. I stayed watching it way longer than like a lot of my friends did. I stayed watching it through until about 2004. Like Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. The night where Benoit and Guerrero both won big on the same night at WrestleMania. Like, it was probably probably one of the last ones that I watched. And then I properly like ducked out of wrestling completely, and I didn't follow it at all until the most random event of seeing on YouTube that Goldberg was going to wrestle Brock Lesnar, and just being like, how in 2016 is this something that's going to happen? I thought these guys were long gone. And then you click the video, you watch it, you realise they still look absolutely phenomenal. The match sounds exciting. You find out it happens. It's a like 2.5 minute squash match.
It just kind of got me.
Yeah, it just got me like interested enough to start kind of dipping my toe back in. I've got a mate who's watched it all the way through, and I just started texting him being like literally fill me in on the last 15 years of wrestling, or 10. It would have been about 12 years, I reckon, at that point.
What did you make of the product when you dip back into it, from obviously going from the Attitude Era to we'll call it the modern era? What did you make of the product?
I fell in love with Seth Rollins.
Nice.
I fell in love with Seth Rollins and Johnny Gargano. And it was literally just like it was the stark contrast, I think, for me, was how in the Attitude Era, everything was like these big, sprawling brawls. And effectively, you go back and you watch a lot of those matches now, and it is like 75% strikes, 25% moves.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward and you're watching like Gargano versus Andrade, at the NXT takeover, and you're watching people like Seth Rollins and Finn Balor every week. Like the Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler feud that existed pretty much entirely on Raw. And you're just watching these like 20-minute matches every single week where they're doing things that you just never thought a wrestler could do. And it made me fall in love with it again in terms of like, blimey, how are they doing that and not breaking their necks? How are they doing that safely? And then then AEW formed and AEW started, and that was like the perfect time for me, because the WWE like interest, I'd started to be reminded of the things that I didn't like about it. Like, God bless him, but the sound of Michael Cole's voice, the 90,000 camera cuts and things like this, they were just pushing me over the edge a little bit. And then I got this whole kind of Cody and Dustin story that was sort of like, okay, let's hang around and see what this is. And it literally just spiraled really from there. I fell in love with New Japan from there, through AEW, and that led me to Rev Pro.
You do realize you just insulted the host, because we had a top 10 show. We had
top 10 commentators, right?
And who did he have at number one?
The GOAT, Michael Cole.
But to be fair, it's not Michael Cole's fault, right? Like, the dude is incredible at his job. Anyone that's ever worked with him will say that. It's just, I just hear Vince McMahon. I just hear the voice.
We said that on the review show, though. In the early days,
yeah, exactly.
You could tell he was being produced a lot. Now, not so much, because I think Michael Cole I think he can pretty much produce himself. But in the early days, yeah, you definitely had Vince McMahon in his ear. I'll give you that one, but he's still the GOAT.
Yeah. And then so in terms of like Rev Pro specifically, I went to a Progress show just before the pandemic started, just as my missus got me the Jim Smallman book, I'm Sorry, I Love You. Like, just picked it up in Waterstones. I read it over Christmas, and halfway through I realised this bloke owns a wrestling company. It's based in London. Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd go along to a show, just sort of dip my toe into it. And then the pandemic started and everything closed down. So once it kind of reopened, I sort of committed to myself that I'll get back to a wrestling show at some point. And then I saw all the hype for High Stakes 2022. So last January, Will Ospreay versus Michael Oku. And like, I was looking at the cage match for it earlier, actually, because I was just sort of like reminding myself on what was on that first card I went to. And the 3 of the 8 matches were rated by Meltzer as 4 stars or above. Bearing in mind that like he rates very, very few British wrestling matches.
Because
and it was just like,
fuck he's talking about.
So it was just like a perfect opportunity for me. And I went to that show, and then I realised that the following week they were doing a show in St Neots, which is literally 25 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll dip along to that, and I think I'm approaching about 25 shows since then.
I've been going through the Rev Pro back catalogue. I don't think I haven't seen one that you're not at, mate.
Yeah.
I've signed up to the Rev Pro monthly subscriptions. I literally got home last Sunday. I was like, I need to see more of this product. I signed up to their monthly subscription, and it's incredible. I mean, it's easily, I'd say, live. It was my favourite show of the year so far. What I went to last Sunday. I think I said it was better than Money in the Bank. Just being there, and I've rewatched it back. Have you been impressed, Dave, by the standard of UK wrestling since me and Adam have teamed up doing the Hit and the Turnbuckle quite a few months ago now? We've attended quite a few UK shows. I think Rev Pro are, by the looks of it, they are the bar for UK shows. Obviously, we've got Buckle Up next week with Ignite Wrestling Pro. They are absolutely incredible. I've been to Apex in Milton Keynes because it's literally 10 minutes up the road from me. But just tell us, in your opinion, obviously you're like a Rev Pro guy. I mean, for me, it was an amazing show last weekend. I've gone back through quite a lot of their back catalogue. I mean, little companies don't attract people like Will Ospreay, Michael Oku. You know, you could easily, me and Adam say this all the time, I could easily turn on WWE TV and see a Michael Oku. You turn on AEW TV, you do see a Will Ospreay. I mean, just explain to us, in your view and your opinion, how big the UK scene is. Because my eyes have really been opened in the last 6 months. And Adam would tell you, I'm always badgering him, like, are we going to this show? Let's get to that. I mean, I'm coming back from holiday. I think Rev Pro are down in Southampton a few days after I get back. I'm probably going to get in my car. I'm going to get in my car and drive down there, I think, and just so I can go and watch the show. But just explain to some of our listeners and our viewers that might not know the UK scene as much as WWE and AEW, because like you said at the start, that's all we've grown up with. But since the world of the 100%. internet and stuff like that, mate, just explain to us in your words how big the UK scene is. Yeah,
well, I mean, firstly, I'm just going to kind of do a bit of a comparison to it. When Kenny Omega won, when he won the AEW title, and him and Don Callis screwed John Moxley, and they said tune in on Impact TV to find out what's happening next. And I remember sitting on my sofa watching it with my missus and being like, well, we're going to have to watch Impact now. I need to know what happens next. And when I first went to Rev Pro, it was a little bit like that. I went because I was getting a chance to see Will Ospreay.
Me too.
But it was everybody else on that undercard. And like the opening match was Shota Umino versus Yota Tsuji. Now, bear in mind, Yota Tsuji headlined Dominion, which is the second biggest event in New Japan, literally a month ago. Shota Umino has appeared on AEW. He's been dubbed one of the Three Musketeers. He's effectively like the second coming of Tanahashi. And that was like the very first match. And like the standard was just unreal. You've got two lads who have been trained in the New Japan dojo, which is like typically brutal and has like this ridiculous success rate for churning out like hugely pushed stars. And then it didn't stop. The second match had Dan Maloney on it and Callum Newman. And it was quite clear at that moment that Dan Maloney was further along in his progression than Callum Newman was. But for Callum Newman to be like in his early 20s and be doing the stuff he was doing, I was somewhat expecting to be going to a show which would be sort of like, you know, what I imagined a local British wrestling show to be. A lot of sort of like kind of pantomime and stuff like that. And it just wasn't at all. And then like Gabriel Kidd's on the show. You've got Aussie Open and Sunshine Machine, who went for like 26 minutes in like an absolutely like, if that was on AEW, it would have got at least another half a star off Meltzer, and it would have been 4.5 stars comfortably. And it was just like that sort of standard all the way through. And then I'm one of those people that when I sort of dip my toe into something and I like it, I want to invest. So I was like, okay, they've got an on-demand service, 7-day free subscription. So I'll do that and dip my toe into it, watch a couple of other shows. And you realise like the production is excellent. Yep. Like like York Hall is this beautiful venue, and it's got the big screen, it's got the pyro, it's got the Stars that Icon merch. Like we literally met like in a queue to chat to Trent Seven and Charles Samuels. Like that's amazing. But what you realise is all the little venues they go to as well have got so much character, and it's the way that everything that happens in Rev Pro happens for a reason. They're planning 3 months ahead. They're telling stories all the time, and they're telling stories that are on the same level as what we're watching people get paid millions to do on TV. But they're doing it in front of 200 people, 300 people, 1,000 people. And the more you invest in it, the more you're rewarded. Yeah. And what I absolutely love is how positively all the wrestlers talk about Rev Pro. Like Ospreay, so I saw Ospreay in December when he wasn't meant to be on the show. It was going to be Zack Knight versus Tomohiro Ishii. And it was going to be, I can't off the top of my head recall what the second match what the other like main one was. It involved Oku and Mills were having their blow off match earlier down on the card, and they'd got another name. Oh, it was going to be no, scrap that. Sorry, but the key thing is that somebody had to pull out last minute, and it was just one of those ones where it's like, oh, we've just lost the big name. We've lost the big name that people had bought their tickets for, and then they replaced it with Will Ospreay versus Tomohiro Ishii.
Wow.
It was, sorry, I remember, it was RKJ was going to wrestle Great O'Khan.
Yeah.
And RKJ broke his forearm.
Oh, shit.
And it was like, that's like the championship match can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the way that they did it, where it was like, okay, so we'll get Will in. And Will was literally meant to be on his holidays. He turned up and was just like, I'm meant to be on holidays, and I've turned up for all of you fuckers. And it was just like, you got this like amazing reaction. Him and Tomohiro Ishii headlined it and went 25 minutes, and it was like, it was just exactly what you'd expect it to be. It was like a G1 match. But you couldn't have RKJ versus Great O'Khan. So rather than just, have to scrap the plan, it was, how can we write the next 3 months of story out of this predicament? So Zack Knight had to defend RKJ's title on RKJ's behalf. Zack Knight then loses the championship to Great O'Khan, which got paid off last week at Epic Encounter. Yeah. And with RKJ turning up to challenge Zack Sabre Jr., saying, I never lost my title, I'm the uncrowned champion of Rev Pro. So literally 7 months later, in that time, we've had RKJ challenge Zack Knight in Sheffield, and they had a banger of a match where it was very much around the story of, in our family, this is how we settle things. We settle it in the ring. You've had Great O'Khan being the heel champion who's never around, that kind of like Brock Lesnar-esque character where it's like complete disrespect for the title, as we saw when he sort of laid it down and stood his foot on it when it's meant to be this sacred title. And it's really been a case of any time that they've had their back against the wall, they've come out fighting. And I think over like the pandemic, it would be so easy for a lot of these companies to withdraw and play it safe. And Rev Pro have done the opposite. They're booking even bigger talent. They're booking even bigger shows. They're really, really committing. And you're seeing people like, you're seeing that paid back. Like Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay don't need to be wrestling in England in front of 1,000 people, but they do it every opportunity they get. You've got this core group of Michael Oku, Connor Mills, Robbie X, Luke Jacobs, Sunshine Machine, who haven't been around for a little while, but then Greedy Souls have been having their tag run. You know that Sunshine Machine will be back. You've got that women's. I mean, that women's match we watched was absolutely class.
That was one of the best matches I've seen this year.
Yeah, and you've got Alex Windsor, Sky Smithson, Danny Luna, Hyan. They're all like capable of leading a division by themselves, and they're all competing for that title. You've then got some really good youngsters that are brought through as well. And it's something that I really love is watching back, you realise everybody that I've watched for Rev Pro started off as one of their like young lions, for want of a better phrase, like they have in New Japan. So all the lads that you see at ringside who are setting up the ring and helping like manage the event, give it 2 years' time and they'll be headlining these shows. That seems to be the pattern of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's really, really lovely to see. And then from like a personal point of view, I love being able to take my family. I love being able to take my kids to these events, and they're made to feel so welcome. Like literally before every show, there's people on merch. At halftime, there's people on merch. Afterwards, there's people on merch. No one's ever scoffed when you've gone up and asked for a photo. Everyone chats to you. They're just top quality people, and your fandom is rewarded. And I think that's something that could so easily be taken for granted, but it's not at all. You are very much appreciated as a Rev Pro fan. And, what a year for it, given that they're going to be running the Copper Box the night before All In, which is just going to be
great timing.
The absolute chart. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's great timing. I mean, you could have so many wrestling fans in and around London. Ads, do you think that someone like Rev Pro could be like the English breakout AEW kind of thing over here? Like in the UK, I mean, we've discovered in the last 4 or 5 months how many UK promotions there are. I mean, we're going to try and get down to Wales to watch Wrestling Carnage. We've got DOA Wrestling down in Suffolk that you and I are going to try and get to. We just partnered up with them. But Rev Pro just seemed to be, like I said at the start, you're getting people like Will Ospreay, Michael Oku, just to name a couple. Could Rev Pro, they've taken it to the next level. We've tried it over here loads. We've had wrestling on ITV. We've had wrestling on Channel 4 that have all been English wrestling. But for me, the online subscription and the whole thing like that, and the DOA wrestling, they're on Fight TV. It's so what I'm trying to get at is it's so much easier now for these English wrestling companies to get out there. Your online subscription that you can start. Well, there you guarantee. I don't know how many subscribers Rev Pro have got, but if everyone's paying the $6.99 or whatever it is a month, there's income. DOA Wrestling have got a deal with Fight TV. There's income. You know what I mean? It's so much better now than what it was. Like we started at the start of the show, we had WWF on Sky Sports maybe once a week, and like Raw was on a Friday. This is the days before SmackDown. This is like we had WWF superstars. So, Ads, do you think someone like Rev Pro, there's no ceiling for them? They can go as far as they want.
Yeah, absolutely. They can. I mean, that one show just amazed me. From the moment we walked into that venue, I looked at you and I said, "This is going to be incredible." I think it was really nice, and just sidetracking, and we spoke about this, that we sat right behind or right in front of the announcers. So we was listening to, and you could listen to Gio and people like that. And it was just, for me, that was more than anything else. But Rev Pro, there is no ceiling. Listen, if they wanted a TV deal, I don't think it's going to be that difficult to get. I wouldn't think if they wanted to put it on, British television, for want of a better phrase. I mean, the only issue that you would have is at some point, some of these talents are going to be going off to potentially the WWE or AEW, where they wouldn't be able to come over, but I don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling is very, very high for Rev Pro. Dave, what do you think the future for British wrestling is? Like you say, you attend countless events, and Rev Pro, like I say, I go to Apex. What is the future for British wrestling? I mean, like Adam says, it's good to go and see these guys. I mean, Impact have got new tag team champions. Where were they last weekend? You know what I mean? So they're, the ceiling is, there is no ceiling, I don't think, for these British wrestlers. I mean, and they grind as well. Like we've got a few coming to buckle up next week. One day they'll be in London, the next day they're in Scotland, then they're in Wales, then they're in Devon, then they're in, they're in Cardiff. These guys and girls work so hard.
Andy, just a quick side note, buckle up, sold out. Done. Wow. The last 3 tickets have been gone whilst we've been recording this show. Unfortunately, there is no more. So the likes of Oku and Mills, you will see that, well, the people that have bought a ticket, will see them next week, but we are officially sold out.
Oh, wow, over 200 people at our first wrestling event. Buckle up next week, 23rd of July. That just proves how big English wrestling is, right? They, a venue in Bournemouth. I know some of the young lads that were at Rev Pro last week. I got to chat to them. I know they go to a lot of the Ignite shows. They make that event. They're so loud. Them guys are absolutely incredible. They get all sorts. They get all sorts of chants going. I absolutely love them boys. They are what wrestling needs. But there is no ceiling, right? Is there, for British wrestling?
There really isn't. And I think I was chatting to Eddie Dennis at a show last summer when NXT UK went on hiatus, and it was really, really interesting listening to him talk, because it wasn't like an air of desperation that NXT Europe's going to start and going to book everybody back up again. It was more an excitement to be back doing what they've loved doing for so long. Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, people often say things like, "Oh, like I'd love to see that person in this company," and I'm always thinking, I'd just love to see Rev Pro grow even bigger. I'd just love to see more people getting to witness what an amazing product they already have. I think something that's massive for them over the last year has been the live streaming.
Yeah, so if you can't make an event, just watch it live.
Yeah, they'd film the show, and it would go up on demand within sort of like 3 to 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's streamed live, and you get an HD version literally the next afternoon.
Mm.
So, if on a Sunday I can't get down there, I haven't made it down to Southampton yet. It's on my hit list. It's a beautiful venue.
Room in my car, mate. I think I'm going.
Yeah, I'm really, really keen. So, like when they're doing a Southampton show, I'll watch it on the Sunday, and then literally the next day you'll get the tweet saying that the HD version's available, and I'll watch that version like that when I get home from work the next day with the family, and we'll all sit around the telly and watch it together. I think in terms of like TV deals and stuff like that, AEW on ITV4 has really shown that there is a massive demand for it in this country, and the fact that AEW is now more widely watched in the UK than WWE is, pure from a sense that ITV is more widely available than BT Sport is. But it just goes to show that if you can have, if there could be like an hour of Rev Pro or an hour of British wrestling a week, like there's definitely a market for it, and it grows from there. Look at AEW, who started with 2 hours of Dynamite, and I think over this week we've probably all watched 5-6 hours of it through Battle of the Belts and Collision and Dynamite, and there's that demand, I think, for it, because otherwise you wouldn't have 70,000 people buying tickets to go to Wembley for All In, and you wouldn't have a company like Rev Pro booking a 7,000-seater stadium the day before it. And what I find amazing about that is I remember the day the Copperbox tickets went on, I get the pre-sale code, and you're there, you're trying to pick your seat, and you're literally just watching the seats churn from green to grey.
Mm.
And at that point, it was based upon there's going to be Shingo Takagi versus Will Ospreay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. That's an amazing match. I cannot downplay that at all. Like they've literally had five-star matches together in their career so far, and you're guaranteed a sixth one at the Copperbox. But ultimately, one match is selling all these tickets, and now they're adding on. Now Zack Sabre Jr. has been added to it. Now Tomohiro Ishii's been added to it. And and again, something that I love is they don't just book big names from other countries and bring them over for no reason.
Yeah, there's always a
like
reason
these
to what
people, like Tomohiro Ishii is a former British heavyweight champion. He's held that Rev Pro title. Shibata's held it. AJ Styles held it. Like they've had massive names all the time that Rev Pro's existed. Obviously, the pandemic absolutely affected everybody, and it would have taken them time to recover. But what also I think it gave them an opportunity to do was realise that they've got some amazing talents who can be the next champions. If you look at like a who's who of Rev Pro champions, they're all massive names. But in the last 2 years, it's gone from Will Ospreay to RKJ, from RKJ to Great-O-Khan, from Great-O-Khan to Michael Oku. And for the first time, you've got a couple of young British lads as Rev Pro British heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think everybody that in the Rev Pro scene is really keen to see get pushed. We want to see the names. We want to see people. I loved getting to watch Lance Archer a couple of months ago in Stevenage. Like, what a treat that is. But at the same time, I want to see the Rev Pro British heavyweight champion in St Neots. I want to see them in Stevenage. I want to see them up in Sheffield, like hitting the towns, for want of a better phrase. But ultimately, I think during the pandemic, they really got a chance to discover that they've got some serious talent already here in the UK who are now like getting pushed beyond belief. And if you book a ticket to a Rev Pro show, it doesn't matter where it is, and it doesn't matter how big the venue is, you're going to get an absolutely class show.
Yeah.
And you know that you're going to get sort of like 10 names that are always around the Rev Pro card, you're going to get at least half a dozen of them. And it's going to be RKJ, Michael Oku, Connor Mills, Robbie X, Luke Jacobs. Now we've added in like Shah Samuels and Trent Seven have come back as regulars, but they've not taken anybody's spot. They've just added to the storylines.
Taken Oku's belt and fucked off out the back.
He's still running.
Yeah, he has done that. But isn't that going to be a beautiful match at the Copperbox when Michael Oku?
Leighton Buzzard should be my favourite wrestler, really, because that's where I live.
He's in Japan.
Mate, he should be. He absolutely should be.
He's been caught up in Japan.
I'll tell you what, those boys that love to sing a chant, they do love singing "His Name Is a Town."
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
It's a great town. But
and I'll tell you what, that's something else that is worth noting. The more shows you go to, and you'll see this watching back on demand, the more shows you go to, the more you realise that they have like a core group of fans who travel everywhere with them.
Yeah.
Like the number of I'm getting to a point now where I've sat next to so many people where I've been like, we don't know each other, but we've definitely been in the same room watching Rev Pro 20 times before. And it's like every person that I've met has been absolutely lovely. And it's a really nice community of fans. And that's I think that's really encouraged. It's really encouraged by the company because the way that the wrestlers interact with the fans sets the tone for how the fans then interact with each other.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Well, Dave, if you ever need someone to go with, mate, just drop me a text. I'm always up for these Rev Pro.
They've definitely got enough.
Yes, mate, I'd love that.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
We're going in. I know we've all booked up to go in September as well.
229.
229. We're all going to that. St. Neots isn't a million miles for me, but yeah, it's a credit to Rev Pro and what they've done. We really enjoyed our time watching them last Sunday. I can't wait to go to more events. But Dave, it's been great having you on our show, mate. You've made our job really easy, mate. I'd love to sit in here listening. Might get you to come on every week. Me and Adam could just sit here and we'll let you do it, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant, mate. We've really loved having you on. Tell our listeners like where they can find you on social media. How the hell you haven't got a job doing proper photographs of Rev Pro? I don't know, mate. Because
some of need a podcast.
Some of the photos you've been banging out from their events, mate, as well has really incredible. But tell our listeners where they can find you, mate.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Dave the Mark, and generally in the front row of most shows. So feel free to come and say hello.
Yeah, we like we did, and then here we are recording a podcast. But ads, we're going to be back with our usual shows next week. We've got Raw reviews, we've got
Slammiversary first.
We've got Slammiversary, which was, by the way, if you haven't watched Slammiversary from last night, Jesus Christ, I reckon that's one of the shows that's up there with the Rev Pro show for me. It was incredible. I won't spoil it. Go and watch it. Follow us on all social media at HTT Buckle on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you can find us. We're going to be there. But we will do this all again in the next coming days. But Dave, thanks so much, mate. Keep up all you do, spreading the good word about the British wrestling, and we will definitely catch you at a Rev Pro show soon, my man. So take care.
Cheers, fellas. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I've been your host, Andy Burrows, with my good friend, Mr. Adam Cousins. Till next time, everybody, buckle down. Stay safe.